So I did a video yesterday with Brian White where we talked about the Cybertruck. And then I did another one with Brian White where we talked about a lot about the Gen 3 car and where it's going to be built and stuff. I thought I needed to bring in another opinion. So I could get one opinion from Brian White and one from Brian Wang, and who knows which one will be. Yeah, I know it's too easy, right? So, Brian, we want to talk about Gen 3 and we want to talk about BYD. Been a tremendous number of articles this week. By the way, thank you for being on board, and everybody should follow Brian at his nextbigfuture.com. That's his science blog, and it's amazing. It is absolutely incredible. If you care about science, if you care about Tesla, you should care about science. So, Brian, lots of headlines, all worried, all concerned that BYD is going to make more BEVs than Tesla. And I'm like, yeah, probably. It's just like happened with Apple. They are certainly not the world leader in terms of the total number of smartphones being made. Anyway, what is your prognostication with regard to BYD's growth going forward? And then we'll spin back around and look at Tesla's growth going forward.
So the main thing that I look at is the S-curve adoption levels, right?
On EVs.
EVs and everything in general. The technology S-curve adoption is, things are slow, and then at 5-10%, things really take off. And then from 10% to 80-90%, things are just like nearly vertical, right? China's at like 32% new energy vehicles, of which about 75% are BEVs, and then 25% are plug-in hybrids, right? So that's out of nearly 28 million vehicles that they sell per year. Bad economy year, they're down about 25 million. Good economy year, they're close to 30 million. 2023 is going okay, and they've already sold 13 million in all cars in the first half of the year. And, they're selling, close to 3 million worth of new energy vehicles in the first half. Like I think in August or September alone, 1 month alone, they sold about like 850,000 new energy vehicles, almost 600,000 BEVs. So if your run rate is about 7 million on your BEVs. So they are deep into the rapid acceleration, right? So next year they're going to 45-50%. The year after that, 65%. So any China car maker, BYD, Great Wall, all the other guys, they're going to say, okay, I need to practically double by 2025 and maybe more, and then close to triple 26, 27, right? Because basically China's going to go, ICE cars utterly collapse, and then they make that. So for 32% now, they're looking for a triple. But toward that end, the plug-in hybrids start going away, and then you have to make pure BEVs, which you see kind of in Norway. So China's heading to Norway there. So just based on that rough modeling of how things are going, Europe is about 2 years behind China. They're at like 20%.
A little over 20.
But then depending upon which country. I said Norway's right ahead.
98%.
So it's Sweden, other countries are ahead. France, Germany are a bit ahead. But they're, in that range of coming in. I think Germany's getting close to 30%. So the shift there, but they are about like less than half the vehicles. I think they're like 12, 13 million total. Vehicles. The other thing is that China's vehicles, half of them are the super cheap 15K and under. Right. The 25% are 75. So the vehicles there, half of the market is something that Tesla's not competing with at all. And actually Tesla's only at the top 30% of their vehicle market, which, based on how much Tesla's selling, they have about 40% of that higher end market. So coming in with a 25K and up thing means that they'd be competing for double the market. Instead of competing for the top 25%, they're competing for the top 50% if they come up with a nice 25 or less K vehicle in there, right? But BYD is competing for more of it, right? They're competing. They have some cheaper cars at like half the price or less in China, and they can sell those vehicles in China for less than the same vehicle shipped out to other places because of all the regulations related to making it street legal. So BYD can get up to a triple over the next 3 years, get to a double over the next 2 years. So they can get to like 6 million by holding their share in about 2025, and then 2027, they can get up towards 9 million, right?
And then all of the other majors and even some of the minors would be doing something similar.
Right. So, if you're a major China player, your thing is to hold share or grow share. And if you're holding share, if the whole BEV thing is going to double and triple, double in by 2025, triple by which is growth slows down. It does a fast doubling and then slows to only 20% growth, in 26 and 27, something like that.
And if we but again, I just want, for the audience's sake, I think we need to talk about this in terms. These are companies, BYD and some of these others are companies who have an existing product that is working, that is selling, that is compelling to the Chinese audience, that is acceptable, it's reasonable, it's not some futuristic thing like a Ford or a General Motors is talking about. Well, we'll have it. Next year we'll have it. No, these are people that are selling 500,000, 1 million units now, some of them less, 100,000, 200,000, but they have a solid vehicle that's already in the marketplace. So all it is really a matter at this point is scaling. And of course, not every company is going to be, even if they've done it before with ICE cars, every one of these companies is not going to be as successful as one another in scaling. But the thing that they have going for them is this massive TAM. So it really gets down to how fast can we build these factories and put out cars, and we can figure that several or multiples of them will be successful in doing that. Is that your scenario?
Right, and also that Tesla should be growing and getting its share too.
Right.
They need to double, at least double, and if not triple, by addressing a bit more of the market as people give up entirely on, a joint venture with BMW, blah, 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 gas car, a gas Cadillac or something like that. Then they need to switch over to a full BEV on the higher end, and anything over 30K and then hopefully down to 25, 20K should be something that they should consider the Tesla version of that product for it. So that means that Tesla will need to expand Shanghai. They talked about doing a second factory. They need to get that going with the right product mix for this expanding and growing market.
Right. So you would anticipate that one of the future gigafactories probably would have to be announced fairly soon if they're going to be making that kind of quantity. As early as 2025, they would have to make the announcement within months, would be in Shanghai. Now, do you look at that as in combination with something that might happen in India, or do you look at the India decision as completely separate from the China market decision?
I don't see the non-China market of Asia, other than Japan, and it has its issues, allowing competition in Korea and stuff like that. It's the big thing is China, 28 million out of 70-some million globally, right? So then you have 2 million or whatever in Japan. The rest of Asia, I think, is like 1.5 million or something like that. So it's not a huge thing. So
no, I was talking about in terms of production.
In terms of production, I don't know. In terms of production,
can India be a part of the production that goes into China that solves that growth issue that they're going to have in China?
It's a complicated question in regards to rules, regulations, and support. If you make that car in India, I don't think you can export it into China. That you'd well, it'd be a hassle and probably have restrictions doing it. If your ultimate end market for that vehicle is China, like you need to expand into China, but you want to match it up. Like I don't want to, get stuff messed up. So it's more of a question of, you have the end market demand,
right,
and then how do I match up my production to that demand?
Right. So you would so just so we keep it clear, you would like to see what you think Tesla should be doing and probably will do is they would need to put in another factory in China. Shanghai probably might make the most sense, but someplace in China, they need to put in another factory that's going to make these Gen 3 vehicles, and that this factory would be capable of making a couple of million vehicles in China so that they continue their approximate same market share going forward.
Right. And if you could have some kind of export hub for your cheap vehicles for India, Europe, South America, etc. So you could make that hub someplace, and then shipping logistics and other stuff around that. But I think many options are viable. You could stick it in, Indonesia. You can stick it in India. You can stick, there's plenty of places you could do it. And I'm unclear, not being in the negotiations, what makes more sense.
Right. Okay. So now, again, going back to the headline, is that BYD is pretty likely, in your opinion, and I think I agree with you, BYD already makes more cars than Tesla because they still make ICE cars.
No, they stopped making the ICE. They just make plug-in hybrids. So half plug-in hybrids, half BEV.
Worldwide, because they have factories like
right.
Places.
Right. They gave up on ICE entirely. Okay. Everything is plug-in hybrid or BEV.
Okay, so
they did that like a year ago.
So between those two, they do make more cars than Tesla already.
Right. And they also beat Ford in terms of branded vehicles like last month.
Right. And we would both agree probably that BYD will pass Tesla in terms of BEVs, plug-ins, maybe even next year, because they are, I suppose the reason would be that it might be less expensive, not less expensive. So the reason—
They're cheaper. Yeah. They have cheaper models.
Because they're cheaper. So they could just—
So they have their Gen 2 models. The Seal, the blah, blah, blah.
It's not about do you think it's about the demand, or do you think it's about the ability to just knock out these factories? I mean, BYD's been knocking out these factories for years all over the world. So they might have a little bit more ability to move quickly on the ground to create this massive production of cheap cars.
So they're making their own blade batteries,
right?
And they have a cheap car. So they have their equivalent of a Gen 2 car, platform 2 car, and they have cheap batteries. So they got their equivalent of 4680 scale, and they got their cheap cars. Right. Good for them. They were ahead of Tesla up and when Tesla had the Model S and blah blah blah, until Tesla got the Model 3, and then Tesla pulled ahead. They had a quality problem, had to do a bunch of recalls and kind of relaunch at that same time, and then Tesla passed them for a while. And then they got back ahead on overall units, but behind on BEVs with their plug-in hybrids. So but the thing is, even though they have their own equivalent of 4680s and they have their cheap car, they're making very, very little margin. So they're saying, I'm going for volume, and we've got this other stuff that makes it cheap. We got endless capital from whatever China provinces and other things like that. So instead of Tesla having 20% margin, they have like say 5%, right? So so they
actually it turns out their gross margins right now are a little
similar.
Expected, like maybe in the 12-15% range. It's their net margins, which are nothing. And there's a question on that. I haven't been able to dig into it yet as to why their net margins are so low when their gross margins seem to be at least better than the industry average.
And the problem is that their financials are opaque.
Yes.
So it's like even more opaque than the North American ones, and North American, don't give us all the information we need either. So it's basically like, how do they split it between this and that? Ultimately, though, when you get down to the net income thing, it's this tiny number, right? So if your net income is 7% less, then okay, I got my own batteries, I get some 5% advantage. So they're giving up, 15%. It's like, as I said, okay, we do another 15% price cut in order to achieve more volume. And then we start pumping them out and we have 4680s and all that kind of stuff, right? So that's the aggression that BYD has.
And I would think that BYD, though, just like probably Tesla, and this is, this is something that hasn't come up in the conversations with those who are worried about Tesla's margins when they do these price cuts. Another reason for doing the price cuts and getting as much volume as you possibly can out the door in a tough year is just once you get market share, you get a better chance of clinging to market share. Once you get the person to buy your car, I mean, if BYD is the first car I buy, the first electric car I buy, I'm going to have some loyalty to that brand going forward as long as it performs decently.
89% retention if you're smart.
Well, it's 80. That's a Tesla kind of retention,
right?
But it's not necessarily going to be true for BYD. But even if it's 50% or 60%, that would still be good. The other side you just mentioned in terms of their profits is we know what happened with Apple for many, many years. Apple made more than 100% of all the profits on phones, even though they only had like 23% of the total share worldwide. Now they still don't have even 50% of the share worldwide, and they don't make 100% of the profits now, but they certainly make the lion's share.
Although they are getting better at getting more unit volume.
Yes.
Apple's getting better at more unit volume. They came out with their lower end phone and stuff like that, the $300, $400 phone, and they've done better on their volume. So it's not like you stay at the high end and then you can't make a better thing. And people say, I do want the Apple iPhone. I do want the Tesla when you come in with the cheaper product that is not crap. Right. So that's what, remember there was some interview with Steve Jobs talking about, how come the PCs and whatever are cheaper and stuff like that? It is because we won't sell you something that is that compromised. Right. So if you grab market share with a compromised product and all those kind of things, fine, you get the share, but you will not have the loyalty. Right. Eventually people will say, I want one that has 250 miles of range and blah, blah, blah. Right.
Exactly.
So.
All right. So I think the part of the reason for doing this particular episode was because we need, stated at the highest level, we need the competition. There's no way Tesla by themselves knocks out the entire competitive landscape. So therefore, we need the competition in order to eliminate ICE. Part of that competition is BYD. And as much as we, testosterone-driven males want to win and we want to be first and everything else, and our team needs to be in first place all the time, don't worry about the headlines about BYD selling more cars. It isn't more dollar volume. It isn't more profit. And we actually need them in order to get to the mission. Is that a good
Yeah. And the other thing is that, let's imagine that Tesla has terawatt hour batteries.
Yeah.
Right. What are they going to use that terawatt hour for? Right. Would you be using it for 200 gigawatt hours of Cybertruck? That would be, if you have a 100 kilowatt hour pack, look at 2 million, right? 2 million Cybertrucks, right? If you have, your megawatt hour semis, then a million of those would be a terawatt hour, and you use them all up, right? So, and so each one of those things, it's like how you allocate it. And I would not necessarily allocate it where it's on the cheap vehicle end of things. Right. So
where it makes the most sense for the mission. And
right.
sometimes even within the mission, you do have to take into consideration market share. Once we pass the point where the BEVs are now more than 50% of all cars, then you'll start to be more concerned about market share in a region or market share, worldwide. That is not a consideration when the total number of BEVs is only 17% of the total automotive market.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I think we've covered that then. And Brian, as always, when we need the science and we need the numbers to be precise, we grab the guy who does a blog called Next Big Future. And if you haven't gone to Next Big Future, you should go there and you should live there because Brian needs money. No, because Brian really does really good stuff on that blog. And you're the number one science blog.
Yeah, number one science blog.
In the world, yes. So there you go. That's enough reason to go right there. Thanks, Brian, for being on. And thanks to all of you for watching. It's been great talking to you. If you don't mind, I do want to pitch my little device here. I have these little devices for $25. You can't believe how cool this is. Look at how thick the stainless. I mean, holy mackerel! It comes in a camo as well. It's a can opener. I mean, I'm sorry, not a can opener, a bottle opener. So you got your bottle opener here too, and it's got a magnet on the back, so you can slap it up on your fridge. I mean, is this good or what? So anyway, you just send $25 to my PayPal account. It's down in the information below. Just click on there. You can send it 20. Now, if you're out of the country, I got to charge you an extra $20 for freight. So, or if you join my Patreon, I'll give you one at the $10 level. I'll give you one for free.
Click the link below to get your paperback, Kindle, or audiobook now.